everyone, this is Deepakshi. I currently lead marketing at Xflow. I'm an investment banker turned marketer. So I've been working with SMEs and D2C brands for the last 6 odd years now. And very excited about this webinar and to demystify things that nobody essentially talks about post-fundraise. And Tanmay and I will, I think, jam more as we speak. So yes, over to you, Tanmay.
Thanks so much, Deepakshi. So, hey guys, good evening to all. I've been a brief similar background to Deepakshi. Been a banker for 8 years, got a little bored of banking, so decided to do SaaS things. Uh, been here for now 4 years and working with a bunch of startups on helping them with ESOPs, cap tables. Obviously, these are what we'll speak on today is critical because those are pain points which I've faced when I was a banker, when I was advising clients. So I've worked on multiple fundraisers. To name a few, the Series A for Ola cabs back in the day. So that was one of the first ones which I worked with Bhavesh. So I mean, the journey starts from there. And yeah, that's been a brief journey and would love to interact with y'all, understand what y'all pain points are, and happy to address them as we speak. So yeah, over to Deepakshi. Maybe we can
Yes, perfect. I think we can directly jump into the 5 things that, oh, sorry, we have a question here for folks, which is essentially what is the most important aspect of after fundraising for you? Is it managing cross-border payments, clarity in equity distribution, risk of failure due to mismanagement, fear of regulatory compliance, or literally all of the above? If I'm not mistaken, and if you're a founder that is in its early stage, I'm guessing it will be 5. Perfect. As I think folks can respond in the chat bot, we can actually directly jump into the 5 things that we really want to talk about today. And what we'll try to do essentially here is give both aspects from an Xflow, that is more from a cross-border payments and from Qapita perspective with respect to also managing your cap table. So I think the first and the most important, rather the non-negotiable, is become security. Tanmay, over to you.
Thanks, Deepakshi again. So, it's coming from experience pretty much after your fundraise. One of the first things investors look for is clarity, certainty around, majority of the security classes of their investment. So typically you see equity shares, preference shares, convertible notes, safe notes in the US. So there are multiple instruments which come in with multiple rights attached to each one. So each class comes with voting power, dividend preference, liquidation preference. So there are a bunch of these instruments which are typically very important. So it's always important to have the right instrument from day one. You need to understand the instrument's nitty-gritties. Make sure your cap table is up to date, being transparent. So I mean, security in that sense is non-negotiable. So share certificates, issuing them issued promptly. Nowadays you might have seen the governance with respect to issuing digital shares. It's a non-negotiable, that one as well. So that also has to be done. And if you have foreign investors, that becomes an even bigger challenge. So this not only builds trust but also sets the tone for a professional and well governed company as such. So I think there are 5 important points predominantly which you should take care of on from a security perspective when you're issuing shares to your investors. Clarity on security classes, so that should be step one. The second one is obviously the rights attached with respect to what each security class comes in with. So maybe the voting rights, the dividend preference, anti-dilution protection, liquidation preferences. So again, these are jargons, but once you have, you probably will have a legal team or legal individual or someone advising you. Please make sure you are on the right page here, because these things will come and bite you with later on. So make sure that is there. Alignment with term sheet. So there's a step between the term sheet and an SHA or an SPA. These things should talk to each other. You can't have something separate in a term sheet vis-a-vis this. And obviously documentation like the share certificate, I think that's a critical piece now. Delays or errors will raise red flags here. So you want to be on the right side. And again, transparency. So with respect to capital structure and existing plan classes. So I think that's where you should be really sure of the security classes which you are giving. Happy to address more questions later on, but over to you. There's another security aspect with respect to payments as well. So that's something which Deepakshi will probably cover.
Yeah, I think fully echoing the sentiment, and honestly, everything related to today business finances is highly regulated in India. So it's extremely important to ensure that your what whoever you're working with or whoever you're partnering with, it's fully secured and compliant. In case, particularly about, when you talk about Xflow, we are essentially ISO certified and SOC 2 certified company. So security is a gold standard for us, given that we work with the gold standard of banks today in the world, which is JPMC. So yeah, I would not just bank on security, but also I believe that security and regulatory compliance go hand in hand, which is essentially the second point that we want to talk about. Yeah, which is essentially keeping a regulatory and compliance process absolutely airtight, and that's something that we do because given that we are 100% RBI and FEMA compliant, and for any startup for that matter, right? Whenever you're processing payments, receiving anything, or even like for that matter, like sending payments out, it's extremely important to ensure that whoever your partner is, whether it's whether it's any platform or any other partner for that matter who is enabling these for you, has compliances and regulatory certificates in place. You're enabling your required FIRCs and getting all the documents and certifications you require after processing a payment with you within time. So essentially, you're not taken by surprise. So yeah, totally like echoing the sentiment of security and also now regulatory and compliance essentially go hand in hand, at least from a cross-border payments perspective. Over to you, Tanmay.
Yeah. So I think, security regulatory comes in. I think these are interlinked in a way. So once the money hits your bank account, compliance clock starts ticking. In India, you must, issue a share certificates within 2 months, file all the relevant forms with the registrar, foreign investors, RBI compliance, FEMA guidelines. I think, you're it's not very difficult, but I just think you need to adhere to timelines, and don't forget to update your statutory registers, resolutions, board resolutions, shareholder resolutions. I know smaller companies, y'all can it can be typically managed because it's very I mean, y'all are tightly knit, but these things can pile up, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of things when you reach a series A or a series B or a series C, and maybe an IPO at some point as well. So I think the foundation of it is very strong. Make it an investable company going for future in the forward. So I think regulatory step one. I think there are four pro tips which I would share with respect to regulations. Invest in a good professional CA or a CS to review these major milestones. Take help. It's inexpensive, but please make sure you're there. Audit, again, another aspect, annually. I mean, at least for when you are at the early stages, you should do it regularly. Valuation, again, a very good practice to get it. The compliance says once in 6 months, but if in smaller startups and etc., it can go on till 12 months as well. But just get that once. It's actually a very good practice. And for founders there who are actually looking at doing a bunch of activities, invest in a founder's office role, going to someone who can help you with these kind of instruments when you're doing fundraising, when you're a founder solo doing sales, when you're doing marketing, when you're doing governance. Help. You can get someone who has this background of finance, who's a little young, can get into that role and manage these things for you. So yes, I think that's where it goes. I don't want to go into list. I mean, it's a small list of past three MGT 714 SH7 filings, FEMA guidelines, maintaining statutory registers, share allotments, and board and shareholder resolutions. So, but invest in. I think it's very straightforward. The processes are set. Invest in getting that from day one. So that's where I would leave it.
Perfect. Yeah, I think moving forward, given that most of y'all are Indian startups, and most Indian startups that we know today have headquarters either in the US or in Singapore, and for the right purposes, absolutely. And given you're actually running your Indian entity, your operations rather, and your team in India, I'm sure a very common use case that Indian startups today have is when they wire their funds from their global headquarters to say their Indian subsidiary for that matter, right? And if you have a reliable banking partner, absolutely great and bang on. However, what you don't realize in this case is that how much you're actually spending on FX cost while you're wiring those funds. So you've I'll quote a very small example that recently happened with us, that if you wired, say, hundred odd $1,000 from US to India, right? You have absolutely no, your relationship manager at your bank is not answering. You have zero idea about where your funds are stuck. You cannot actually track your funds. You have no idea on when will your funds essentially hit your account. And even if they essentially end up hitting your account, you forget about how much you've actually paid because that transaction is essentially done. So that's where essentially platforms like Xflow come in between, which not just enable you save your money, but more importantly, enable you to save your time so that you do not really have to spend time on figuring out where can you save money on FX, what are the documents or what are the compliance certificates that you need for transferring, what are the other 100 compliance hurdles that you need to take care of, because all of that essentially is being taken care by Xflow. So for any, I think that $100,000 example was typically from a global, like if you have a US entity, but even if you're a startup which is essentially getting, say, payments from your global clients, and you don't know when is that payment hitting, and you need to perhaps pay your salaries, and you have absolutely zero clarity or intimation from your bank, what do you really do in that case, right? And that's exactly where we come in between, not just to save your money, but also to save your time and to ensure that you have ultimate transparency on any transaction that you do, along with not just like with respect to communication and compliance. So, yes, that's broadly about it. We can, yeah. Hey, Tanmay,
Sorry,
I think, no
sorry.
worries.
Yeah. So once the money comes in, the next step is, implementing those things on a daily basis. So you will use capital in the right way, but with capital obviously comes cap table, where your capital just cap table isn't just a small Excel where that employee, the investor one, investor two, investor three have X number of shares. That percentage is this. I mean, that's what you will maintain in an Excel. But I think it's just not an Excel. It's actually the DNA of your company's ownership. From day zero, you need to treat it the same way as your product roadmap or something. It's very simple, but I think you need to give that sheet or something. And nowadays with fundraising, where you have angel investors, you have multiple quorums who are coming in and participating, this is even more critical, where tomorrow you need a shareholder approval, you need board approval, shareholder approval, will go into, some people have more than 50, 70, 80 shareholders. So it becomes very critical to keep all of them handy. You should divide them into foreign, domestic may, if you have an institution, if you have a domestic person, if you have someone who's a part of a consortium. So I think tagging, doing a bunch of those things, making sure Series A guys, Series A preference shares, Series A equity shares. If you have a seed round, you have, if you have a convertible note, converts at what percent, what date. I think it's very critical. You should be aware of it. It shouldn't be only the founder having a handle on it. I mean, founders should have a handle, but it's important for others also to have a grip on this. Again, I know it's sensitive information, but that's where a platform like Qapita comes in as well, where these are things which hygiene factors which can be easily transcribed on day one. So we today manage about 20 to 2500 startups in the private space in India. To track every share, it becomes your single repository for all your ownership. You can treat that as holy grail, because that effort has gone into populating all your information. You can store in your sh4 documents, your share register documents. I just think it's very important to have that, so that during a fundraise there are multiple fires which happen. This shouldn't be on top of your head at all. This should be just a simple click of a button. This is the download, and you can share this with your investors. So this is going to be a handy every time. Start simple, and at, I would say, during early stage fundraising, avoid overcomplicating your cap table with, again, multiple share classes. If absolute, obviously necessary, keep it clean, transparent, and audit ready. I would say that's what it is. And I think cap table is again looked down upon in a way where you sh- I, sh- I, do, I should someone shouldn't have access, someone should do this. It is available on MCA quickly, simply use platforms like which exist there, and it'll be very convenient for you going forward. So you're investing in time to make sure your time later on becomes simple, and you can ensure you can commit to other fires if there is later on. So that's briefly a little bit on why you should maintain your cap table from day zero, and you should maintain that well. Yeah, happy to take up the next question. But yeah,
I
so
think we're almost thorough with the last point now. So
yeah, so I think another aspect with cap table, right? So is equity as well. So for us, equity, that's also another aspect of why founders keep asking. We have multiple questions from founders and finance guys on HR folks asking us, guys, what is the right time to give ESOPs? When should you make a pool? How you should create a pool? uh, Ultimately the pool is part of your cap table. So once you raise funds, you don't do you, should you start before raising funds or after you've got the funds in your account? I would say the answer to that, I mean, there's no right and wrong about it, but in my opinion, with the companies who we worked with, it's obviously you should take it beforehand, because there are some investors who, I mean, dilution matters. They don't want to dilute after they coming in. Obviously, it's a call which the company takes or the founders take, but it is important to get clarity on ESOPs, because now ESOPs is becoming very, very critical in a journey when you hire a talent from somewhere, because ESOPs is prevalent in the West. India is picking up because of the liquidity events, because it's the wealth which is being created. So I think it's time, or we should invest in ESOPs, or in a good policy from day one. So I think that's also one other factor. ESOPs are your best friends. Allocate a pool upfront. That's what I mentioned. But structure vesting according to what you feel right. 4 years, 3 years with a cliff period for Indian startups actually structure their ESOP plans, because this is where founders get tripped upon, in that sense. Can you give founders ESOPs? Can you give consultants ESOPs? People you have brand ambassadors, can you give them ESOPs? For us people today, capital is very important. So how can you structure or make let others be the a journey in the wealth creation journey as well. So it starts with creating an ESOP pool, typically 5, 10, 15. I think this is where the range comes in, depending on what you feel right, which journey of where the journey of the company is. If you're a single co-founder, then you might need a larger pool. If you're 2, 3 co-founders, then you can do with a smaller pool. So I think these are things where you need to decide. There is no right or wrong again, but the pool needs to be approved by the board, the shareholders, and then it's crucial to get the right investors also, who actually are on the same page. So I think the topic of ESOPs can go on and on and on, but at I think ESOPs is very critical at each stage. So a policy or an ESOP can be different at a seed level, a Series A level, a Series B level, a pre-IPO level, and an IPO post-IPO level. So it's actually a simple, very unique and a very powerful uh, uh, instrument. Um, I think documentation and compliance again with this is very important. You should have the right scheme from day one. We've seen companies in the smaller scale uh, having very complicated ESOP schemes, and then once they grow and they realize, why did I have this? It becomes very difficult to go retrospectively change things, and you're dealing with employees who've come, been a part of the scheme, and then left as well. So going back to them and renegotiating is actually non-negotiable. I mean, you can't do it. It's very difficult to have those things, and that's why I think it's important to get things sorted. Once the fundraise happens, you should have the scheme document also in place. Give ESOP basis, pre fundraise, or give post the funds come in the account. But communication, post that is also something very important. If you want to communicate with employees stating, you've got ESOPs at X price, this can go to 4x, 5x, 10x. That's why people join you, right? When you're a startup, that's the X factor or the multiplication factor. That's the wealth which they want to create. And I mean, they want to learn, obviously, but this is ultimately the ultimate goal as well. So these are ways where, don't treat ESOPs as an afterthought as such. A well-structured, well-communicated ESOP plan is a magnet for getting top talent, and a sign of a mature, uh, founder-friendly company. So keep your documentation clean, cap table updated in a way, and your employees well informed. You will go places. So that's a brief of how you should probably structure these 5 points from, you know, uh, get your equity in place, get your cap table in place, make sure your regulatory aspect is covered, make sure your security classes are in place with respect to what you give investors, and obviously the currency bit where you should have systems in place where you're saving on time and cost as well. So just a small summary of the 5 points which we spoke about.
Hey, Tanmay, I think somebody's dropped a question. Oh, wow. Great timing. It's in the chat that they're asking if you mean that it's good to plan ESOP much before funding stage.
Yes. So, Sumesh, thanks. It is important depending again on the stage of the company you are at. You should plan, because what happens is, if today you are sitting on, if you're a co-founder and you have some angel investors who've invested with you, or you're looking at an institutional round, it makes sense to do it before the institutional round. Sometimes institutions also come in with saying it's a CP, a condition precedent, with respect to getting the ESOP policy in place. So they it's a prerequisite. So they will want you to close that before the money comes in. So that's another aspect of why uh, you should do it before. But again, it depends on how the company wants to take it up. They can take it to it that way. I hope that's answered the question, Sumesh.
Yes, I think they've given, a thumbs
Yeah,
up.
awesome.
Hey, I also have a question, Tanmay. So I
Sure.
want to understand that given that you all have worked with about 2000 odd companies, so what is the biggest, I would say, mishap or mistake you've seen a founder make at the cap table?
Uh, Interesting question. So, uh, considering Sumesh's point itself, right here, people don't account for this dilution early. So, today you would say you would want to create a 10% pool, but you've not thought about it. 10% equity at a early stage is easier than doing it at maybe a series A or a series B. So you should think about dilution early, in a way, where for your ESOPs in particular. And cap table mistakes, oh my god, there are plenty there. So uh, convertible notes, a very big factor. People don't account for the interest rates. If there is a IRR baked in, there is a valuation cap, there's a valuation floor. How do you account for, if you hit this revenue number or this valuation number, then they convert to a particular percentage. If they hit a lower threshold, it converts to a particular percentage. Anti dilution kicks in for some investors in an M&A transaction. Preference shares comes in before. So these are very, very things which people are unsure of, absolutely. And again, people will advise you, but you should be aware of what you're signing on. When you have the SHA or the SPA document, you should be aware of these terminologies. We have certain documents on our website to share that. I'm happy to share this one-on-one, happy to take questions, but I think these are very important. Our platform, typically when you update a cap table, these are parameters which will guide you to state scenarios where you can build on, saying, if I raise a fundraise at this point, what will happen if I raise at a X value, what will happen to my dilution. And typically it's very straightforward. A person will think of it as, today if I am raising my next round, there is going to be dilution because it's probably happened at a higher valuation. You will always feel, oh my god, my stake which was 30 is now 22. People, ESOP's pool should be considered in this, not considered. So these are things which you should make sure you're aware of these things, and it should be in that right word. So I hope that's.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. If there are any other questions, given that we are a smaller audience, Basant, Irshad, Mansi, Sankal, please feel free to shoot. You all can actually type it in the chat box also if you don't want to unmute yourself.
So I'm actually just curious on if you can share some light on, how does your pricing work with respect to a peer, or we typically, being very candid here, we use HSBC for our transactions. We are a Series A plus funded company. We've raised about $35-40 million. How do you all price, and how long does it take typically for the money to get? Because you spoke about capital being stuck somewhere
Yeah.
and you don't have clarity. So timelines and pricing, if you can share some light there.
Absolutely. So, we are supposed and meant to be the cheapest in the market, which essentially means that we are honestly cheaper than your bank today, whether it's HSBC or any other banks, ICICI, HDFC for that matter. Why? Because Xflow essentially uses this concept of mid-market rate as compared to what banks use, which is called an IBR, but we use a mid-market rate. And secondly, and more importantly, we are partnered with JPMC and we have our rack rates already defined with them. So we are able to give our customers about like a slash 50% on their current FX cost, just because I understand that how much essentially like they're spending. That is one. Secondly, our transactions have happened as transactions that rather settle as fast as say within 60 minutes to 120 minutes, which is about 1 hour to 2 hours, to about at the max 24 working hours. So T plus 1 day is what our business settlement essentially takes in this case, which is either at par or faster than what even the banks have today for that matter. And with respect to and ensuring you have access to your UTR, you know where your transaction is. Also, the ability to withdraw whenever you want is something that is also a cutting edge, I would say, added feature that we have over this. So yeah, that's broadly how our pricing works, but we are happy to essentially customize pricing if you're transferring anywhere more than say 10,000 odd dollars every month. Perfect. Yeah, I think this is literally the summary of everything that I've talked about, which is essentially we are here to make cross-border or any international payments simple, fast, and affordable for you. So whether you're a business that has global clients and you have recurring payments coming from your global clients, or if you're a business that frequently wires funds from your global headquartered entity to your Indian subsidiary, we are here to essentially enable that seamlessly and in a way more speedy fashion for you than your current payment provider. We are backed by Lightspeed, Stripe, which in itself is a gold standard in the payments infrastructure today, along with Square, Peg, and General Catalyst. We are an ISO certified and a SOC 2 certified company. And yeah, ping us and ping, like, I think I'm happy to drop my email ID and ping me for anything if in case you want to have a chat. We've worked with about 7,000 odd businesses till date. This is a snapshot of the kind of businesses that we've worked with. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That's very helpful, Deepakshi. That's a little bit of us. What we do for a living is manage companies, ESOPs. We're helping them seed their capital, help them build it with, we have a platform where you can manage this. And obviously harnessing this with, we have a consultancy layer which we help where we can manage your we can help you design your policies as well. So ESOP policies. So you can think of us as your ESOP experts end to end, where from giving the first grant to getting the policy in place to managing it throughout your tenure from private to being public, and ultimately helping you with liquidity as well. So if you're a private company seeking liquidity, with large scale companies, we have a marketplace team as well, where we can assist companies on liquidity on a regular basis. So I think pesa in the hand is very important, and that's what we also intend to do with ultimately the platform. So platform plus liquidity plus fund valuations plus consultancy. That's where, and law firms, founders, shareholders, teams, HR folks, finance teams, and employees are who we work with typically. And we have a nice customer base with respect to 2,800 customers. We serve about 57 unicorns in India itself, and the likes of Flipkart, Swiggy, Razorpay, Meesho, Ola, Oyo, Flipkart, even on the listed space as well, the likes of Infosys, Kotak Bank, ICICI Bank. So we have good presence. We're somewhere we can help you with at all points. Cap table, ESOPs, anything on the equity side, please give a shout out. Happy to share what our experiences are with the companies who we manage, and happy to help you as well.